Seems only the other day, doesn't it, that India had won a test match in Melbourne. The Sydney test was rained out. We were celebrating a series win over Australia after disappointing tours of South Africa and England. And here we are 2 years later, back again, playing 4 test matches in Australia. Isn't that fantastic? Back to a country where test cricket is loved and is seen as the pinnacle of the summer. So what do we remember about 2018? Because it's so close, there'll be frequent references to it. You remember Pujara, of course, and the Indian seam attack. That was what the win was built around. No Ishant Sharma, but I still think Bumrah and Shami are bowling very well. Shami, if anything, probably bowling even better. What do you remember about Australia? I never dreamt that Australia would have such a poor top order as they did there. Australia searched high and low and far and wide for a batsman and did not find one. The top 6 averaged 27. Top score was 79. There was barely any 50, 60 plus scores in that series. Now what has changed in 2 years? As this series starts, take away after the first test, 6 test hundreds and a batsman that Australia are genuinely concerned. Even the word feared has occasionally crept in. Take away Virat Kohli. Bring in Steve Smith. 700s in his last 8 test matches against India and averages 84 against India. The only reason why I think Australia start with an edge. I've not used the word favourites. I think Australia start with an edge because of the difference in batting between 2018 and now. Warner, Labuschagne, Smith, it's a huge factor. But let's look at that in a little more depth. What do we have on either side of Labuschagne and Smith? Remember, Smith hasn't yet played Bumrah. I'm going to come to that in a minute. But look what they have on either side. All good teams are built around a solid opening pair. Australia thought they're going to open with Warner and Pukowski. Poor Pukowski. They talk about him as a great talent, but he keeps getting hit on the head. Warner out for the first test. I'll be surprised if he's not out for the second, unless being very fit, he's able to make a really good comeback. They're looking at Burns, who's got 60 odd runs in his last 8 innings, is struggling to put bat to ball. Every time he does, he gets an edge. Then there's Marcus Harris. They've tried him before, been found wanting. Now they've got to go back to him. So there's not much there at the top. India will want to get Labuschagne and Smith in as early as possible. Now what's on the other side of Smith? You've got Wade and Head. Good players, but both have scored runs when they have in around the big star that Steve Smith is. They're not quite a War or Bunting or the Aussie players India have played against. Then there's Spain and there's the bowling. And while the bowlers can bat, they're still not, you don't expect them to win you a test match. So I do believe that if India's seam attack gets it right, then there is a vulnerability to this Australian side. India will have to bowl very well though. And I think for India to do well, while we talk about that great middle order, whenever India has done well, whether it's Sehwag and Chopra, whether it's Sehwag and Gambhir in recent years, whether it's Murali Vijay doing well at the top of the order, you need that stability at the top. And I'm hoping Mayank Agarwal provides that. Who plays the first test? I hope that Prithvi Shaw does so well that you don't need to make any changes at the top, because as the tour goes along, I see a place opening up for Shubman Gill in the middle order. Maybe Vihari goes up and Gill comes in down because he's a fantastic talent. I see that happening post Virat Kohli. Let's go down the batting then. Which wicketkeeper do you play? My views on a test match wicketkeeper, I think, are pretty well known. But I think teams these days increasingly favor the batting element to keeping, especially if you want your keeper standing back most of the time. Which brings us to the bowling combination. There's some talk about playing 4 seamers. And while that sounds very good, and they're 4 very quality seamers, make no mistake about it, India did that in Perth on the last trip and lost. I think you always play a spinner. Nathan Lyon took a lot of wickets in that Perth test. Nathan Lyon has done reasonably well in the pink ball test as well. I like the way the ball was coming out of Ashwin's hand in the first warm-up game that he played. So I would still go in with 1 spinner, and I think the 3 seamers should be able to do the job for you while 1 spinner holds up another end. You never know if Kohli goes away, Rahane might revel in the responsibilities. Vihari might become double the player that we know. Gill might get the opportunity to make a big debut. The more India thinks about the absence of Kohli, the more in trouble India will be. Then that pink test. I think India have been very brave to start the tour with that pink ball test, because it has an ebb and flow all its own. Who would have thought that batting in the first session is something players would look forward to. We always talk about get that first hour away. No, now people are saying revel in that first hour and be careful of dusk, because in dusk, at the time of dusk, the ball suddenly starts to do things, and so people actually time that declaration accordingly. Australia have a fantastic pink ball record in Australia. They've played 7-1-7. India have played 1 against not the greatest opposition, because Bangladesh were coming to terms with the pink ball as well. India won that comfortably, but playing against this Australian side at home will be different. But to me, the one thing I'm looking forward to, there's one contest that to me will define this series, much the way that the Archer-Smith confrontation decided the Ashes. To me, it is Bumrah versus Smith that go a long way in deciding which way this series goes. Bumrah must remain fit. So overall, what do I think? I think Australia have the edge, but if India can start strongly, get decent opening partnerships, if not in runs, in terms of time, then I think India can claw their way back. Australia by a little bit.